Alright guys, hope you guys are having a fantastic start of 2026. I thought I'd make another video on my Smith and Kitava and share you my updates on the build and what's changed. As always, I'm going to show you a script where I organize my thoughts, and we'll go over it pretty quickly without me yapping too much. So if you missed something, please feel free to leave a comment down below. Alright, so onto the script. So first off, we'll be talking about damage profile and the mechanics of how we do damage, okay? So our main damage is elemental damage, and we get that elemental damage from gain as fire damage from perfect essences, such as this one, okay? And we want to craft these on our weapons so that we get gain 33% of damage as extra fire damage on both our weapons for weapon set 1 and weapon set 2, okay? And because we have so much elemental damage based on these, we pair them with Rakiatas on our skills, okay? And with Rakiatas, it treats the elemental damage taken by the enemy as inverted, which means that if the enemy has 75% elemental resistances, it will have minus 75%, which boosts up our elemental damage even further. Okay, so that is the general idea. Okay, we also have rage and berserk to boost up our damage even further. Okay, so right now we have eternal rage and berserk. Eternal rage basically lets me generate rage for free. Okay, and then now I have 44 rage, right? And that 44 rage is then enhanced by berserk, which gives 78% increased rage effect. So 78% times 44 rage is equal to 78% more rage effect. Sorry, so more rage. And one rage gives you one more attack damage. Basically means I have 78% more attack damage. Okay? So that's the general idea. Or we pair the elemental damage up with Rakiatas, our skills, which increases the elemental damage, plus the rage is giving us 78% more damage. So combined with those, we're doing so much damage, okay? So let me repeat that. In short, we use rage as a damage booster, and we take advantage of Rakiatas' effect by stacking as much as gain as elemental damage on our skills as possible, preferably fire damage, okay? Okay, now for the defensives. As always, we are Smith and Kitava, and the ascendancy is basically naturally very defensive, okay? We pick Smith and Kitava Ascendancy to fulfill our defensive needs. So, Smith and Kitava does this by giving you all these nodes, right? And the Cold Stoker node basically means that by stacking fire resistance, you're already stacking cold and lightning resistance, albeit at 50% of their value, okay? And it takes the defensives even further by giving you nodes such as armor applies to elemental damage, which is right here, and chaos damage, right here, okay? And then we have this node, which is basically more physical damage reduction by granting you that physical damage gets converted to fire damage, which then is mitigated by armor applies to elemental damage and the Cold Stoker, okay? So we'll be depending on stacking high amounts of armor, which then fuels our damage mitigation even further, considering armor applies to elemental damage and chaos damage. So due to our dependence on rage, and because rage has a degenerative effect, we also stack a lot of life leech. Let me present to you the rage effect, okay? So right now I'm generating a lot of rage, which then fuels my berserk, right? But berserk says that I lose 0.1% of maximum life per rage per second while not losing rage. As you can see, my health is slowly going down. This is because of berserk, right? So to fix this, we are stacking a lot of life leech, okay? And life leech can be attained in 2 ways. One of the ways being this support gem right here, life leech 3. The another way to stack life leech is through rings and weapons right here. Okay. But I find that putting in the support gem, Life Leech 3, is a much better option because this support gem not only gives you high life leech, it also makes sure that life leached by that support skill is not removed at full life. Usually, what happens is that when you leech, you stop leeching if you're at full health, meaning that regenerative effect of leeching gets stopped when you receive full health. But this gem makes sure that with that support skill, the life leached by that support skill is not removed at full life. So even at full life, you keep healing and you keep getting the life leech regeneration. Okay? So this life leech support is way better than stacking life leech on your weapons and on your rings, which is good because you want better modifiers on the rings, such as more resistances, life, more strength, more attack speed on your weapon, and attack skills and onslaught on your weapons. Okay, so I'm using just the support gems for my life leech. Okay, so with the life leech, as long as you're doing enough damage to enemies in your maps, your health will always be regenerating. Albeit you need to be damaging your enemies non-stop in maps, which is pretty easy to do because once you get into really juiced maps, there's going to be a lot of enemies. Okay? So the only time you will die is if your damage from your enemy far exceeds the life you have and the life you are regenerating, aka getting one-shotted. Okay? But stacking high amounts of armor, and armor applies to elemental and chaos damage, mitigates the chances of you getting one-shotted, right? And that is why sustaining scavenge plating in maps is also helpful in getting high amounts of armor. We also socket in cannibalism right here. We also socket in cannibalism right here, which basically lets you recover 2% of your maximum life on kill while a support skill is active. So I put that into scavenge plating, but you can also put that into Herald of Ash or Berserk, right? Okay, so now that is now we're done with the defensive profile and the mechanics of the defensives. Okay, so let's go into bossing. With bossing, we have Eternal Rage, which I just showed you earlier, right? Which lets us generate rage for free. Okay, so we're always generating rage while we're bossing. And with Berserk, like I said, we're getting 78% more damage to our skills. There are two ways to go about killing bosses, okay? There are two ways. Right now, currently, I am using Rolling Slam and Perfect Strike. But as an alternative, and maybe even a better alternative, is Rolling Slam and Hammer of the Gods. Okay? So let's talk about Rolling Slam and Hammer of the Gods first. Okay? With Rolling Slam and Hammer of the Gods, you're looking to stun the boss with Rolling Slam. Okay? So you keep spamming Rolling Slam, and when the boss is stunned, you use Seismic Cry. Right now, I'm not spec'd into Seismic Cry, but you need to spec into Seismic Cry, okay? And when the boss is done, you use Seismic Cry with Hammer of the Gods to kill the boss, okay? So it's gonna look something like this. You Rolling Slam, and then you Seismic Cry, and then you Hammer of the Gods, okay? So that's basically it for Rolling Slam and Hammer of the Gods. And we need to talk about the anti-burst mechanic. So in this patch, they introduced the new anti-burst mechanic for bosses. So which means that bosses need to be alive a while longer until the anti-burst mechanic gets deactivated, okay? So meaning that, after maybe one or two Rolling Slams, the anti-burst mechanic will probably have deactivated, and it will make sure that Hammer of the Gods will kill the boss, okay? Okay, now what I'm spec'd into is Perfect Strike. So let's talk about Perfect Strike for a while, okay? I'll tell you why Perfect Strike is a very good candidate for boss killing, okay? Because we're doing, like I said, let's go back to the damage profile. We're stacking a lot of elemental damage, and we have elemental damage on our weapons right here and here. And plus, Perfect Strike, naturally, is doing elemental damage, mainly fire damage, right? So, Perfect Strike has massive potential to do even more damage, more than Hammer of the Gods. Right? In my intro, I just one-shotted a boss for 15 million damage with my Perfect Strike because it naturally does elemental damage. Plus, it has all those gain as elemental damage from my weapons, jewels, and my nodes. Okay? So Perfect Strike is the perfect candidate. Okay? So with Rolling Slam and Perfect Strike, you're not looking to stun now because you don't really need to stun the boss. Okay? And it doesn't really give you more damage or better, synergy with stunning. So you just don't look to stun anymore. Instead, you're just spamming Rolling Slam until the anti-burst mechanic is deactivated. Okay. So I find that by the time you've used 1 or 2 Rolling Slams, the anti-burst mechanic is deactivated, and the coming Perfect Strike will finish off the boss. And if you watch my, the first part of my intro there, I did just that. I used Rolling Slam, and then I Perfect Strike, and then killed the boss, okay? And my Perfect Strike is now doing around 10 to 12 million damage, which is massive, okay? So let's talk about the gems here. So for Rolling Slam, you want to spec into Unitol's Embrace, but if you're poor, you can spec into Armor Break. Okay, so Unitol's Embrace, what it does is that it deals chaos damage. It makes you deal chaos damage based off of the physical damage that you have on skill. And then that chaos damage then breaks armor, okay? And you want to break armor because the more armor you break, the more elemental damage you do, especially fire damage, because of this node right here, the Molten One's Gift. It says that fully broken armor you inflict also increases fire damage taken from hits. So basically, you want to break armor, and the enemy will take more fire damage from hits because their armor is broken because of this node. Okay? So you use Rolling Slam, the armor is already broken, you use it twice, and then you basically one-shot the boss with Perfect Strike. So the rotation is gonna look something like this. Rolling Slam, okay, Rolling Slam again, and then Infernal Cry, and then, and then Perfect Strike. Okay? So that's basically the main rotation. If you want to be more optimized, you can use Infernal Cry first to empower your first Rolling Slam. Okay, Rolling Slam, and then spam it again, and then use Infernal Cry again, and then Perfect Strike. Okay? And that will be enough to kill the boss. Okay, so on my Rolling Slam, I also have Leech, because I'm spamming Rolling Slam a lot, right? And because Rolling Slam has high physical damage right here. Let's just take 120,573 as the physical damage from Rolling Slam. Okay, so 16% of that becomes my Leech. Okay, so times 0.16. So I'm getting 19,000 as Leech. Okay, so which is huge, and which is enough to sustain me for the entirety of the boss fight, because basically I have 2,927 life, and spamming this will give me always 19,000 regeneration over 1 second. So I'm immortal when it comes to boss fights. Okay. So yeah, so on Rolling Slam, if I had to finish my gem setup, I will have Unitol's Embrace, Close Combat for more damage, Rage Forge for more damage, because we're generating Rage, we want to spend Rage as also, right? And then we have Fist of War 2, and then we have Life Leech, okay? For Perfect Strike, we have Zerfi's Infamy, which I already explained in my previous video. The more life you use, the more glory it will get, and the more damage and more area effect it will deal. So the more life I use with Blood Magic, right? Because I am speculative blood magic, every skill I use costs life. And because it costs life, it fuels up my perfect strike. Okay? So I have Surface Infamy here, close combat for more damage, window of opportunity for more damage, Rakyatas for uber damage, and Rage Forge for more damage. Okay? So all in all, I'm doing 10 to 12 million perfect strike damage, as you can see in my intro. Now, if you want to use Hot Hammer of the Gods, please go ahead. It may be easier and more convenient for you to use it, but with Hammer of the Gods, you'll be using Xerxes Infamy, you'll be using Close Combat, Rakyatas, Rage Forge, and then you'll also be using Fist of War. Okay? Fist of War 3. So this is your Hammer of the Gods setup. Alright? Okay, now let's go into mapping. Okay? So we are mainly using 3 abilities for mapping. Okay? So with mapping, we're using Sunder, Leap Slam, and Rolling Slam. Okay? And you might ask, Rolling Slam, you just said Rolling Slam is for bossing. Well, it's for both, right? With this Rolling Slam, I have weapon set 1 and 2 allocated. How I switch in between weapon sets is basically Infernal Cry. When I use Infernal Cry, I am immediately in weapon set 1. Okay, so when I use Rolling Slam the next time, I'm using it as weapon set 1. But weapon set 2, I just have to press X, or maybe I just have to use Leap Slam, which is all allocated into weapon set 2 for bossing, and use Rolling Slam. It's faster, and it's at weapon set 2. Okay? And now I'll get into the utility of all these skills right now. Okay? Sunder is the main skill for clear. Okay? Because it already has a natural AoE effect and large AoE area, right? We want to use Sunder, and it also has a lot of damage as well. So we want to use Sunder as the main skill for clear. And we want to use Leap Slam for travel as a travel skill and a secondary skill for clear. Basically, when you Leap Slam into attacking mobs, you're doing a lot of area damage, and the AoE on this skill is decent. So once you jump onto a pack of mobs, they will usually just explode and get killed. Okay? And for Rolling Slam, why I use Rolling Slam in mapping is because of, again, armor break. Okay? Because I'm breaking armor with Unitol's Embrace, I am getting Scavenge Plating stacks. So I use Rolling Slam from time to time to get Scavenge Plating stacks. Okay? So, with mapping, we want to generate Rage with Sunder. So I put in Rage 3 on Sunder, okay? And then, so I just spam Sunder and then get so much Rage in maps, okay? And I sustain Rage through with more use of Sunder. So I just spam and I get more Rage. And basically that would, naturally just bring down my health with the life cost and all, and with the rage effect, with rage generation effect, my life would go down. But with Life Leech, it's solved. My health is always up on maps because of Life Leech from Leap Slam, Sunder, and Rolling Slam. So I have great ways of sustaining my health, okay? So I'll never die. The only time I'll die, like I said in the second section here, is if I get one-shotted, which is very rare, okay? Which is very rare. Okay, so onto the support gems. For Sunder, we have Calm's Madness, we have Rage 3, we have Rapid Attacks, we have Rigmold's Ferocity, and we have Life Leech. So right now, I am currently using it without Life Leech and with Rakyatas, okay? If you want to be like me, you can do this, okay? You can... Wait, let me just put these on. Okay, so for bossing, I would just put Rakyatas on my Perfect Strike and Fire Penetration on Sunder. And if I'm going to do maps, I put in Rakiatas on my Sunder, and then Fire Penetration on my Perfect Strike, and then I switch them around when I'm bossing again, right? So before bossing, I would just put in Rakiatas, and for mapping, I would just put in Rakiatas with Sunder, okay? And I have Rolling Slam and Leap Slam as Life Leech for my sustain, as well as Cannibalism for my sustain, okay? So that's how I map. So this is not a, one button build. You need to be actively choosing when you want to use Sunder, when you want to use Leap Slam, and when you want to do Rolling Slam in various different situations, okay? So that is mapping. And for rarity, depending on your farming strategies, you can either choose to stack rarity or not stack rarity, okay? Right now, currently, with my with my gold amulet and my gold ring, I am stacking 100 plus rarity. Okay? So, my build is really good for stacking rarity because, it has a lot of good defensives. It already has life leech from support gems. It already has so much damage. I can freely stack rarity just by being able to, give up some damage boost or some survivability boost, okay? So it's your call. A lot of warriors are playing negative rarity because of the fact that, rarity is not very good on warriors because warriors need more modifiers, and I agree with them, right? Warriors is, the weaker class of all the classes in Path of Exile. So rarity stacking is not ideal, but I am stacking rarity. And this build just goes to show that it is good because it can stack rarity and be able to do really juiced content, okay? And, I'm going to list all the modifiers up right now of the content that I'm doing. I'm doing 42% to 80% effectiveness maps with, gain as extra cold and extra chaos damage from monsters. I'm doing, monsters penetrate -22 resistances, such as those. And, and I'm doing them very comfortably. It's very rare that I get one-shotted. So, this build is really good. It's very versatile, and it can stack a lot of rarity while surviving in these maps. So you might want to try this out if if you're sick of playing at meta class, and if you just want to try out warriors in general. Okay? But that's about it for the build. Now I'm going to show you, for the rest of the video, I'm going to be, doing very high Giga Juiced maps, and I'll show you the modifiers, and yeah, enjoy, guys.
You will never dodge this! Gotcha!